And what a great slide. I love this. So we are finishing up our 4-week Sunday series called One Journey, Many Paths. Let your heart be your compass. And today's topic is be a trailblazer. Follow your heart. Clear a new path. So there are a few inspirations for that. One of them is this theme of one journey, many paths, and letting our heart be our compass. Because it is one journey, and yet each of us walks it in our own way. And the way that we find that is to follow our hearts. Also, Black History Month has a number of inspirational stories and examples of doing just that. Also, I am inspired by my own experience of being a trailblazer, the ups and downs of that. And I suspect that you have times in your life where you have been too, or perhaps you're getting ready to be a trailblazer about something that is calling to your heart. So the fact is to break free from old conditioning and circumstances and to live the life that awaits us, we will need to be bold and do these things. Be trailblazers at times, follow our hearts in all things, and clear new paths. And I have in my notes in parentheses, and accept the help of our allies along the way. So let's take a look at each of these 3 things that we have on our screen here and talk about what they might mean for us. And then we'll have a conversation of our own. So to start out, a trailblazer is one of those people who goes first. One of those people who is compelled to go first. And there's so much that comes with that package. That person going first is clearing the way and making it easier for the rest of us to follow. But that's not why they do it. It's not why we do it. There is something within us that is compelling. There is something that we have heard about or sensed that is not yet visible in our lives, that we feel in our gut is possible. And we identify it and we become called by it and we pursue it sometimes by any means necessary. So probably that's the blazing part of trailblazing. Sometimes we literally get on fire with something and we just cannot let it go. So we move in this direction of this thing, this idea, this possibility. I've been reading a story about Harriet Tubman in the Science of Mind magazine, which is, of course, a familiar story. You may not know all of the details of her work in her early 20s with the Underground Railroad. This is this month's Science of Mind magazine, which you can get at Barnes & Noble or online. But think about it. Whether it is freedom from slavery, whether it is something that we'll be talking about next month with the freedom from bondage as we discuss Passover and Easter, whether it is freedom from something much more close to home in your life example, it is nonetheless freedom from something. It is a greater expression of what is possible for you that has awakened and is calling you to blaze a trail and to follow your heart on that thing and in the process to clear a new path. Now, if you're doing that, chances are there will be people who do not agree with you. They do not understand what you're doing. They may do everything from disapprove to downright try to get you to stop doing it. And yet, that is a segue into the other part of this, the follow your heart part of this. Medical science has shown us that following our heart is more than just a romantic ideal. Following our heart is a part of our makeup. You may have gotten in touch with this just in your personal life journey. You may have gotten in touch with this because you've had issues with your physical heart. You may have gotten in touch with this because you dared to love and you've gotten your heart broken a couple of times. You may get in touch with this because there's something you're longing to do still in your life, and you have thought that it is not possible for you or not allowed for you, and yet your heart will not let you go on this issue. Medical science says that when we follow our hearts, we experience health. And when we do not, when we try not to follow them because we believe it's not possible for us, or not okay, not allowed, or not reciprocated, or whatever it is, when we deny our heart's direction, we experience heart trouble. So we cannot get away with not following our hearts. We recognize that this inner guidance system, which has been proven by so many other sciences these days, is our true compass in life. It will never lead us wrongly. It will always lead us aright. So if you think of your heart as the compass that you bring with you when you're trailblazing, indeed something that you make sure that you have with you on all parts of your life's journey, you will always be rightly guided. The other part is that when we're willing to be a trailblazer and willing to follow our hearts, understanding that not everybody will get what we're up to, not everyone will agree, and not everyone will support it. In fact, we may even experience opposition on this thing. We end up clearing a new path. It is a consequence of this journeying that naturally occurs. A milder version of this than Harriet Tubman creating the Underground Railroad. A very much milder version of this is from the poem that Robert Frost so famously penned called The Road Not Taken, when he says, "I took the road less traveled by, and it has made all the difference." I'm going to get back to what this means to us in some other very familiar scenarios that we might not think of. But first, I want to say that by being that person who hears that calling and follows our heart, we end up clearing a new path. And it does indeed make all the difference. So to be a trailblazer, we're going to have to be okay with a lot of things. Taking a path that is unfamiliar, that is just a hunch, a gut feeling, an instinct, a flash of intuition and a dream, or something like that. A rumor, a word from a far off place, 90 miles traveling alone to get there to that place. In Harriet Tubman's case, where she was free. And then what did she do? She turned around several times and escorted over 300 people to their freedom. She kept risking it again and again and again. So we need to be willing to be okay with traveling that path of our choosing, even and especially if others may not understand, may not agree, or worse. In her case, there were bounties on her head which increased in number throughout the time that she did her work. Follow your heart. We all have an understanding of this as the sentimental urging, and yet now we know how crucial it is to actually trust that inner guidance that each of us has and not deny it. See, life has a way of fulfilling itself no matter what. I would much prefer that my life fulfill itself in this form, in this iteration, where I am right now, than have to drop it and drop this form. I've got everything all set up and drop it all and start over. I don't want to do that. I want to live this life as fully as possible. So I'm going to have to break down some barriers. That's a big part of being a trailblazer, is being ready, willing, and able, even though we think we're not, to go against the status quo, to break old social and cultural mores that no longer have enough room in them for who we have become. Old roles, old molds in which we no longer fit, right? In the end, we will make a trail not only for ourselves, but we will make a trail for others as well. Now, there's a spiritual principle involved. There are several, but one of them is that we don't become a trailblazer in order to get positive attention, maybe to become famous or noteworthy or something. We don't make history for history making. History is made because we take moves that are out of the ordinary, and we access more of what is possible in the process. We don't follow our hearts because it'll look good and make us popular. We don't create a new path because it'll make people follow us. Oh no. We do all of these things out of a pure, irresistible response to a voice within us that says, there's more. Come this way. Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith says that we are either pulled by a vision or pushed by pain. No matter what, we are called forward. We are urged forward because life is infinite and there's always more. So I want to get to what we might think that all of this means for us. And I want to give you some examples. First of all, I have something to quote from Reverend Dr. She's going to be a doctor, I just know it. Reverend Andrea Earle. This is the article that she wrote about Harriet Tubman in this month's Science of Mind magazine. She says, each of us has something from which we too must break free. I know we can through faith, fortitude, focus, and a sense of inner freedom. We too can stand in the face of the impossible. There is something inside of each of us that knows nothing about no, you won't, and no, you can't. We must look beyond the impossible. When everything around you says, no, you won't, your divinity awakens you into a prodigal son or daughter moment, and you realize, yes, I am. Yes, I can. So I want you to think about this because we're going to have a conversation in just a couple of minutes. What I want you to think about right now, with reverence and appreciation for everyone who has so far made those what we call historic first moves that have opened up doors for people of every sort throughout our history. I want you to think if there's something that you have already done that has earned you the label of being a trailblazer by following your heart, a clearer of new paths by doing that in your own family. Were you the first person to leave your hometown? Were you the first person to leave your home state? Were you the first of your siblings to stand up and say, no, I don't think so? Perhaps you were the one to defend your siblings or even one of your parents against domestic abuse. Perhaps you were the first one in a long line of people who decided to go to school no matter what. Perhaps you were the first one of many generations to break a cycle of addiction in your family. Perhaps you were the first one in your family, in your circles, to admit that you desired to live in a different way than people expected you to do. Perhaps your revolution was saying no to something that didn't feel right. And your revolutionary act was to say yes to something that you knew was possible for you, and you had to do it. You had people along the way who were your enemies, as it were, and you had allies who supported you. You see, we've all been doing this. And I know I am in a place in my life where I recognize there is more yet for me to say yes to. When you enter on this path of study and practice called the science of mind and spirit, the science of mind, new thought, or maybe it's just a combination of spirituality and personal development that's your own flavor. I know some of what you discover because I've been on that path for a long time. All I wanted was to understand and feel better. I wanted to feel better, and the path of understanding led me to feeling better. And yet life serves up a little more and a little more. In our classes, we talk about hidden beliefs, and we say, well, how the heck can I write them down if they're hidden? Well, I'll tell you what, your circumstances will tell you. How you're feeling in your head will tell you. How you're feeling in your heart, your psyche, your emotions will tell you. What's going on in your physical body will tell you. What's going on in your affairs will tell you what you have been thinking and feeling. And there's a rebellion that happens when we've been clinging to some kind of untruth. And as a result, we're experiencing heart trouble. We're experiencing mental confusion. We're experiencing psychological pain. We're feeling boxed in. We're feeling as if we are unfulfilled and we've got to break free because this is not who we are. We're actually going through a perfect process of development. The old container isn't big enough, or the old idea that we said yes to when we were 4 has to go because life has more for us than can possibly fit in that container. So what I want to ask you this morning, and I will remind you again when we start our conversation, is where are you ready to be a trailblazer now? Where are you ready to follow your heart even more? Where are you ready to clear a path to more of what is possible for you? I know that in so doing, you will indeed help someone else, and that's a beautiful thing. And this morning is dedicated to our supporting one another in identifying where we'd like to break a trail and follow our heart and clear a new path to live more. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm so glad that you're with us this morning. We're going to take a moment to wrap up this part of our program, and then we're going to come back for a conversation. So thank you. Thank you for choosing to be here this morning. I think you can tell that this is a topic of great passion for me. I know that in order to be a trailblazer, sometimes you've got to play with fire. So thank you for choosing to be here this morning. We are going to go ahead and do what we call our honoring of conscious giving. As a nonprofit church organization in South Carolina, we get to make sure that we've got plenty in our coffers for what we're doing now and what we plan to do next, because we are trailblazers. So our honoring of conscious giving, there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. One of them is to text the word give to this number, 864-263-1234. 864-263-1234. We are also going to say this honoring of conscious giving that acknowledges all that everyone has given throughout the week, because this is a flow that's constantly going on. We have donations coming in throughout the week from text to give and also from our donate button on our website, which is cslgreenville.com. So let's say this together. From this place of unconditional giving, I step into the flow of the abundant universe. I now find myself in harmony with the nature of life, and so it is. And we do bless these gifts. To bless them means to acknowledge their goodness. It means to say they are good And I know this is so. I know that these gifts, which come in the mail and through email, through electronic giving, and by every other means, bless all of us. They bless the Center for Spiritual Living Greenville and its good work, which is forever spreading across the globe. So we bless them and we call them good. We have one announcement, maybe two, before we move into our conversation. March is here already. So next week we have a new series called New Possibilities. What is New Thought is week 1. Release and Renew is week 2. Spring into Newness is week 3. And a New Freedom and a New Happiness is week 4. Because we are celebrating new possibilities in springtime in the month of March.